Hello everyone, my name is Kudzie Mapiye, and on this channel I do videos about my life living here in Australia, and I also share different life lessons that I've learned along the way. I also offer one-on-one coaching sessions online for current and prospective migrants on relocation, resume, cover letter and interview coaching in Australia, and family relationship coaching for your immediate and extended family dynamics. In this video, I'm going to be talking about having a mortgage in Australia. Is it worth it having a mortgage in Australia, and what are the costs and hidden costs, and is it something that is right for you? I'm just going to be sharing about my personal experiences, and we're at the train station again. So if you've watched my previous videos, these are familiar surroundings. You might hear the train going past or people moving to the train. Just enjoy the view and the sound effects. But anyway, back to the video. I wanted to talk about my experience having a mortgage in Australia. So given the current cost of living crisis in Australia and globally, wanted to share my experience so you can have something as a base. If you're someone who is looking to have a mortgage in Australia, who's looking to buy a home in Australia, and you want to decide if that's the right step for you, I'll also link below in the description box some videos that I've done on suburb tours in Australia, different areas, suburban areas in Australia, and the cost of housing, just to give you a bit of an idea of how much houses cost in Australia, and then you can kind of do the maths. So for my mortgage in Australia, I've shared previously that I bought my house in Australia when I was 27 years old. So I will link that video in the description below about how I bought my house, how I bought my first home in Australia. And today I'm just going to be talking about the mortgage journey and the expenses. So renting versus buying in Australia. I feel like, there's a lot of promotion of like people should own homes, and you should get into the property market, and I'm a big advocate for that. However, I don't believe it is for everybody, and it might not be for everybody at the same time, like depending on your financial situation and depending on your financial goals. Some people choose not to get into the property market, not because they can't afford to, but because of the high costs of mortgage and all the other costs associated with mortgages. They might decide to invest in other things. So they might decide to rent and then use that extra money that they would have been paying as mortgage to get into like other types of investments, such as like shares or real estate investment trusts and things like that. So it really depends on what your goal is and what you're comfortable with. So just to share my journey on getting a mortgage. When I first got a mortgage, like I won't even lie to you, I had no idea how much the costs were going to just blow up. Like at the time I bought my house, and this is going on to like almost 10 years ago now. When we bought our house with my husband, like we were renting, we were coming out of a rental. The rent we were paying at that time was like close to like around $350, close to that range. And the cost of the mortgage was around $500, because when we got a mortgage, the interest rates were also kind of high. And that's another topic I want to touch on interest rates. The interest rates were kind of high. And then there were rates. If you're renting, you don't have to pay rates. Rates are for the property owner. So rates are on top of your mortgage and they're compulsory. If you do not pay your rates, your home can be repossessed. So rates are really important, and they are a compulsory payment. And those are like council rates for your land and, services on your land and stuff like that. So we were paying about $500 just on the mortgage, and then rates. So just to give you an idea of the cost of rates, at the moment, our rates are about, you pay rates quarterly, so that's every 3 months. But broken down to a week, our rates are about $140 a week. So if you think about that, and you add that to the cost of the mortgage. And then you also have to have house insurance. You have to insure your home. I mean, if you're making such a big financial investment, the wise thing to do is to make sure that that investment is secured. So you have to pay house insurance. And at the moment, like as well, it's approximately about on that $140 mark. So if you add all those costs together, if you compare to renting you don't pay rates, and you only pay maybe just the contents part of your house insurance, not the actual building insurance. So it'll be way cheaper. This is not including all the other bills, such as your water bill, such as your electricity bill. So you can start to see that it's a few $100s extra a week. Now, it's something that you really need to put into consideration whether that's the best move for you. For me and, our family, it was the best decision for us, just on a personal level, because I am someone who values ownership. I'm someone who doesn't feel comfortable in other people's spaces. And that's just not like for me, even in our rental that we had before we bought our home, even hanging pictures on the walls, like putting in like those hooks on someone's wall so you can hang your pictures and decorate the house, it's something that I was so uncomfortable with. Like, my husband had to do all that kind of stuff, like put in the hooks. I'm happy to then decorate, but I don't feel comfortable if I know something doesn't belong to me. You know what I mean? When I feel like I have ownership of something, I can really go all out and really be comfortable in that space. And I was comfortable in our rental, but there's a certain level of comfort that I value, and that's the level of comfort that I can only get with ownership. And this doesn't only go to homes. Even when it comes to like borrowing people things, I remember even as a kid, like even wearing something that doesn't belong to me, or just borrowing other people's things, was something I was very uncomfortable with, just personally. So I've never been that kind of person who, if something is not mine, I'm always going to have a level of discomfort with it. So in order to be happy and to be comfortable, house ownership was the best for me, and I value stability as well. So with rentals, you can be asked to move at any point. The owners can give you notice. They can choose not to extend your lease. They can sell the house. Like, so many other things can happen with the rental, and I'm someone who values stability. So it was those two main factors of that, comfortable, being comfortable with ownership, and valuing stability, that really influenced the decision to buy a house. And also, like, wanting to be in the property market was an added advantage. So what I'm trying to say basically was, whether it was going to be financially beneficial in the long run, I was already benefiting from the level of comfort because of ownership and also the stability. So for me, it was worth it. So for you, there's some people who are comfortable in rentals, and that's not a problem for them. So they can rent and they don't mind moving every once in a while. Some people actually love that change of staying in different places, staying in different areas, different houses, different settings. So if that's you, like, house ownership, and don't ever feel pressure that you need to buy a house or you need to get into the property market. You really need to figure out, like, is this something that is right for you, and really put into consideration the other costs associated. Like, for us, it was a big, like, jump financially to go from renting to owning, and you feel it, like, you feel it in your pocket. You start to feel like, hey, the money is running out of my accounts in the hundreds a week. You can really feel that pinch, and in some areas you have to make adjustments in other areas of your life. Like, in other areas where you might need to spend less in other areas for you to be able to comfortably manage your mortgage. And those are some of the things that you need to consider. So I really think, like, with the cost of living pressures that are currently upon us as a nation, as a world, it's really something that, I feel like people don't necessarily need to buy a home. And the other thing I was going to touch on was interest rates. So interest rates, whenever you get your mortgage, you should always, like, think, what if the interest rates rise? Because you might be comfortable with your current mortgage because the interest rates are at another level. they fluctuate. So if you're on a variable plan, because you can be on a fixed interest rate for like a couple of years, or you can be on a variable, you can choose to be variable and just go with whatever the interest rates are. And the difference or the benefits and the disadvantages are, if you're on a fixed interest rate, you just lock in that amount for a few years. You know exactly how much you're going to pay, and you know that's not going to change for like a couple of years, like 3 years or so. You know that you're locked into that amount. If you're on a variable rate, your rate can decrease and increase depending on what the interest rates are doing, and if the interest rates rise, you pay more. If they fall, you pay less. So it's a bit of a gamble. But the other thing also is, if you're on a fixed interest rates, there's a cap on how much you can pay extra on your mortgage. But if you are on a variable interest rate, you can pay like as much as you want really on top of your mortgage. And that's another thing. For us, we always paid extra on top of our mortgage. We just didn't pay the base, like the 500 that was required then. Like, we didn't pay just that amount. We paid a little bit extra. And that helps to lessen your mortgage, because Australian mortgages are 25 to 30 years. And, that's something that I don't want to be locked onto. I don't want to be stuck in a loan for 25 to 30 years of my life. So paying extra really reduces your amount drastically, like your loan term drastically. So that's another thing that you might want to consider. Like, do you want to be on a variable interest rate, or you want to be on a fixed interest rate? And also, are you able to pay more? If you're not, then you just pay your loan for longer. So those are some of the things that I found about mortgages, and is it worth it to have a mortgage? I think the property market in Australia is very good, so you get really good gains on your property. So if you choose to resell your property, you can resell it for significantly more than what you bought it for initially. And as the years go by, and as your loan amount decreases, your mortgage payments also decrease, because you don't have to pay as much because your loan is smaller over the years. So the amount will decrease over the years. But it's really good to be mindful of the fact that you might have to pay a significant amount upfront initially, and they might not tell you everything. Like, if you go to a mortgage calculator, like, you can go to any bank in Australia on their website, they'll have a mortgage calculator. So if you want to buy, like, you can estimate how much you'll be paying a week. If you want to buy like a $800,000 home or something, it'll tell you that if you want to buy an $800,000 home, this is how much you'll be paying a week. But they don't tell you that figure on the mortgage estimator on the bank website does not put into account your house insurance and your rates. And the thing about rates as well, depending on the area you're living, the rates can be really high. So if you're in an affordable area, your rates are not as high. If you're in a more premium neighborhood, your rates will be higher. So it's always good to find out what is the cost of rates in the area that you want to buy. You might be saying like, oh, I want to stay in this area, it's closer to the city. And then when you find out there's cost of the rates, you'll be like, oh my gosh, it'll be like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, a quarter. So that's things that you need to consider and put into consideration. And the other thing is, consider what type of investment you want to do. Do you want to go into the property market? Some people don't want to have those added expenses and then have to maintain the house. And, a house deteriorates over time. So you would need to do like, minor maintenance on it, depending on how old it is, sometimes major maintenance on it. If that's something that you don't want to bother yourself with, and you just want someone to just manage that property for you, you want to deal with a real estate company who will manage all your problems. If the taps stop working, you just call your agent and they'll fix it for you. If you're that kind of person, then maybe a mortgage is not for you. Maybe you can choose to invest in other ways. There's some really, really good investments. And, there's some good investments that I value, like, real estate investment trust. I think those are really good investments, because you're investing in real estate, but you're not owning a physical home. So you kind of get those benefits of the, gains in in capital, but you're not having to maintain. So you can choose to invest in different ways. But if you value ownership and you value stability, then maybe a mortgage is for you, and you will still get those gains. And for me, one thing that I valued, I bought my house that was before our son was born, and I wanted our children to be born in our own house that we owned, and that they will have a bit of stability, and they won't have people coming to inspect, and they'll just know that this is my parents' home. That is something that we valued. So that's something that we considered as well, which is why we bought before we had kids, because it was all about personal values and things that we want personally. So you really have to think about what's important to you personally, and not what the media is saying, and not what in people advise you to do. Get in the property market now. Yes, that's a good idea, but is it right for you? Is the cost right for you? Those are some of the things that you need to consider. So that's it on my experience owning a mortgage, and whether some things that I think are important for you to consider, if that's a step that you're thinking of taking, or you've been debating and thinking, shouldn't I? It's hopefully this video has been helpful in your consideration. And as I said, I would link the videos. I've got a playlist of videos of areas like houses, different areas, suburban areas, neighborhoods that I love in Australia, and that are affordable, and that have good rates, good affordable rates. So you can check that out and start estimating how much, if you're looking to get into the property market in Brisbane, just about how much you might pay. And don't forget house insurance. Don't forget, those rates. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in my next video.